2022 and June the 3rd of 2022 also. They've been distributed via email, and I would ask if I could get a motion for the approval of those minutes.
Secretary Walther, Susanna Marshall.
Yes, ma'am.
I did send in a clarification. There was a typographical error. I don't know if that's been updated.
Okay. Would you tell me what that typographical error is?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. April 28th minutes. My delegate, John Allen, his last name is misspelled.
How would you spell it?
AHLEN.
Oh, that kind of an Allen. Okay.
Yes, sir.
With that change, would I get a motion for approval from you?
So moved. Thank you, sir.
Are there any other changes or corrections to that document, to the documents of either the April 28th or June 3rd minutes of the board meeting? May I have a second?
McLean seconds.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Let's see, how do we get that on?
They're sharing. The treasurer's going to share that on their screen.
Can the treasurer remove? Okay, thank you. The next item is the Employee Benefit Division recommendation for monthly premium rates for the calendar year 2023. For that discussion, I'd like to recognize Jake Lee, EBD Administrator. Mr. Lee.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Secretary Walther. Thank you also to members of the Board of Finance for meeting on this issue again. So a month ago, as you might recall, a little more than a month, we met to discuss some policy changes that we had been working on with our actuarial consultant, Milliman Incorporated. And those changes dealt with how we calculated the amount that employees in the state and the public schools should pay to purchase health insurance through EBD. In the past, we had not adopted these policies. These policies, I think, will help us significantly in addressing some of the different challenges we've had over the past in raising revenue to meet the various expenses of the plan. Milliman identified some best practices that we presented to you all. Those three mainly were first, to begin basing rates, and what we're looking at right now on the screen is your Arkansas Public School employees. You can see those base rates, columns for base rates for 22 and 23. How those base rates are calculated should be a reflection of the total costs of people in that category. So for example, in 2023, we proposed base rates of $489.36 a month for employees in the public school category who elect to get premium coverage. That $489 is a reflection of how much we think employee-onlys will cost in premiums for that year. The difference here between that calculation in 2023 and that calculation in 2022 is a reflection of actual claims experience. Those of you who've been involved in the plan know that our rates have in many cases not changed over the years. That's despite obvious changes in the healthcare marketplace, as well as increased costs through the plan. Healthcare goes up annually, as you all know. So when we looked at adjusting those rates to reflect that actuarial cost, we saw some pretty big changes shifting across, where base rates were going up or down depending on the different category. The other recommendation that Milliman submitted, and which we adopted last month, was for the state to step up and begin contributing a flat, uniform amount across all the lines. And that amount was 80% of the base share. In the past, this amount was about 65% for active employees. By moving up to 80% for active employees, the state has agreed to, in effect, shoulder a larger amount of the cost share. When we did those two things, then we saw pretty significant differences in the amount that the employees would pay and that the amount the state would pay. And as a way of shifting or delaying the sharper impact of those costs, we've decided to phase in those two changes over 5 years, starting in 2023. And those three decisions were approved by the Board of Finance, as you know, and then the Legislative Council. And with that in hand, we have gone forward to calculate the rates we have here. So in a sense, what we're bringing to you now is the math and the calculations that are a reflection of those three different policies. So reading from left to right, just to make you aware, EE stands for eligible employee. You've got the count there, how many we have in 22, what their contributions were in 22, and what the overall base rates were in 22. So the base rate, again, is the total cost, and the EE cont or EE contribution is the portion of the base rate that the employee is responsible for. So you can see that moving into 23, you can see base rates dropping significantly, and that the employee responsibilities are likewise dropping a fair amount. The changes that you see in that 2023 EE contribution change will be consistent for the next 5 years, or they should be. Of course, it's hard to predict the future. We don't know what claims costs look like. We might have another COVID event, who knows? But if all things stay the same, those changes could be expected over the next 5 years. So for most of our lines of insurance in the public school fund, about 80% of our active employees will see decreases, sometimes pretty significantly, over the next 5 years. That's a reflection of those two policies, primarily the actuarial risk adjustments, as well as the shouldering by the state of 80% of the total cost share. If you scroll down on the same document, you can see that the difference for the wellness penalty. In the past, we had provided a $50 a month wellness discount for meeting the requirements of wellness. We are going to continue to have a wellness program. We think that's important, but the $50 difference was somewhat difficult to calibrate and to justify. And I couldn't really, I think that the wellness programs right now are moving in a different direction. So we have eliminated that, and in effect, going forward, we will not have a difference in our rates between those who meet wellness and those who do not, at least for the time being. Now, like I said, we will have a wellness program in the future, and I certainly look forward to bringing to the Board of Finance some new, and I hope pretty cool ideas on how we can determine that. Scrolling down, you can see the non-Medicare eligible retirees. These are people who are not yet reached the age of 65, are not yet eligible for Medicare. Those base rates are increasing significantly. In some cases, you can see 33% increase. But the state portion of that, the state responsibility is likewise increasing. So we'll see some decreases there. And then if you keep scrolling down, you can see the Medicare eligible rates are there. There are some changes there for the Medicare eligible retirees. And then at the bottom, you can see the Medicare Advantage plan offering compared to our existing benefits. So a retiree only on the public school plan would look at a monthly premium of about $8.53. That's a reflection of the contract that we presented to the Board of Finance last month and which has been approved. We can also look at the same phenomenon on the state employee rates, but it's the same process and in many ways the same story. Different risk group, so different claims experience, and as a result, different calculations, but the policies are identical. With that, I'll stop and ask if there are any questions from members of the board. If not, we would ask so just to revisit the process or take a step back and think about the process. These rates were recommended for acceptance by the advisory commissions, which met last month pursuant to Act 114 of 2018. These are the commissions which were created by the General Assembly to help guide and advise the Board of Finance. These rates were recommended for approval. Now that recommendation has been presented to the Board of Finance for consideration.
And Jake, these rates reflect the policy that the board established earlier this year. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. At our meeting, I think it was a month or two ago.
Okay. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I would accept a motion for acceptance.
Didn't get to my mute button fast enough. I am looking at the state, if I may, Mr. Chairman, ask a question.
Yes, you may.
All right, looking at the Arkansas State Employees Summary all the way at the bottom, Medicare eligible. Looks like there are a couple typos.
Which typos are you looking at?
Retiree only is $16.53. And retiree plus Medicare eligible spouse is $33.06. I'm assuming you're missing a third number on those.
So that's actually correct. The total base amount was $165. The state is paying about 90% of that. And so as a result, that should be the correct rate, unless I'm missing something.
Obviously, I was the one missing something. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Is that for both of them? Is that motion for both of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Have a second, please.
I'll second.
Any additional discussion or question? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion approved. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Jake, I understand that you have some upcoming events that might be that might require the board to reconvene maybe in July and or August. I'd like to recognize you for that discussion, please.
Sure. So the advisory commissions are required under state law to meet monthly. And under state law, their recommendations will be presented to the Board of Finance for consideration. Coming up here in August, we have a couple different items which are on our agenda to accomplish. The first is a development of a bariatric surgery policy pursuant to a law that was adopted during the session earlier this year. EBD is required to begin covering bariatric or weight loss surgery effective January 1 of 23. We're working on coverage policies and eligibility rules, which we will be bringing to you all for consideration. In addition, we will be developing requests for proposals or procurements for employee assistance programs. And these are programs that provide counseling and other kind of social assistance to employees who are dealing with stress in the workplace and some other issues, as well as a contract for actuarial services. Of course, we have an actuary, the Milliman Group, that we rely on heavily and which is necessary for what we do. We will be going out to bid for a new actuarial contract. That isn't necessarily a reflection of Milliman, but it's more a requirement of state procurement processes. And that's what we will be bringing to you all probably in about a month.
Okay, we have a regularly scheduled, I don't think we have it on the calendar yet, but we normally meet in August. I don't know if it could wait until August and do it at the same time, or it might be better just to go ahead and have it separate to keep the EBD issues confined to their own unique Board of Finance meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd suggest we have it at the same meeting. I mean, if it's out in August, surely Jake can work around that. I mean, I don't see a reason to have a separate one if we've already scheduled a meeting a month from now.
We can make it, yeah, we can certainly make it work. The only comment I'll make is on the bariatric rule, we have to manage not just the requirements, the Administrative Procedures Act, since it will be a rule, but also the requirements of all the decisions that we go through EBD. So we've got kind of two different levels of legislative oversight that we are trying to balance. But we will absolutely make it work. We will, whatever the agenda or the schedule of the Board of Finance sets out, we will meet.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate that. Okay, is there any other business to come before the Board of Finance today? Seeing no other business, I declare this meeting adjourned. And thanks everyone for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.